Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I probably should say welcome again. This is like my third or fourth video. Let's talk about Russian hacking. Let's have that conversation again. I've done untold number of videos on Russian hacking because, as you know, I believe the story is bogus. I've always believed the story was bogus. I thought it was somewhat insane. Look, I thought it was potentially possible, so don't get me wrong. But between the two and existing in a certain amount of ambiguity, I fell down on this thing of, I don't believe your story. Until you give me something a little bit more than Russia hacked us, believe the DNC, I don't believe your story. And day after day, that story falls apart and becomes a little bit more embarrassing. It's beginning to look like the people who believe the story becomes down on somewhat of a conspiracy theory. But I have a bit of a theory why I think they stay with it. But long story short, this is The Intercept. This is Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald is a lion. Love the guy. Yet another major Russian story falls apart. Is skepticism permissible yet? Oh, the damning question. Is it permissible yet to look at this story as being bogus? In one country after the next, they said that Russia somehow involved itself, got involved, will get involved. It never happened. Nothing materialized. In the German newspaper, or the German system, they cleared Russia of any charge whatsoever of putting out false stories and all this other stuff. There was no interference with Russia. That never came out in American media. Never came out. Nobody touched the story for the most part. It existed over there. Last Friday, most major media outlets touted a major story about Russian attempts to hack into the United States voting system based exclusively on claims made by the Department of Homeland Security. Russians attempted to hack elections in 21 states in the run-up to the last year's presidential elections, officials said Friday. Began the USA Today story, similar to how other outlets presented the extraordinary claim. The official story was explosive for obvious reasons and predictably triggered instant decrees that of course went viral, declaring that the legitimacy and the outcomes of the 2016 presidential election is now in doubt. Oh. Virginia Democratic Congressman Don Byers, referring to the 21 targeted states, announced that this shows Russia tried to hack their election. MSNBC's Paul Revere for all matters related to the Kremlin takeover, Rachel Maddow, was indignant that this wasn't told to us earlier and that we still aren't getting all the details. What we have now figured out, Maddow gravely intoned as she showed the multicolored map she made, is that Homeland Security knew at least by June that 21 states had been targeted by Russian hackers during the election, targeting their election infrastructure. They were one small step away from demanding that the election results be nullified, indulging the sentiment expressed by the hashtag resistance icon Carl Reiner the other day. Is there anything more exciting than the possibility of Trump election being invalidated and Hillary Clinton installed as our president? Let me repeat that because I read that poorly. They were one small step away from demanding that the election results be nullified, indulged by the sentiment expressed by hashtag resistance icon Carl Reiner the other day. Is there anything more exciting than the possibility of Trump election being invalidated and Hillary Clinton installed as our president? Think about what he's saying right there. These are Democrats. Think about what they're saying. They're talking about taking out a U.S. president and installing the person that they themselves wanted in that office. Now the question becomes, how many of these Democrats will be okay with that? How many in the public will turn a blind eye simply because they hate Donald Trump? How many? That's a terrifying idea. That's terrifying. Now, you would see these guys put out reports talking about Democrats being willing, or Republicans being willing to forego the Constitution and forego this and that in regards to laws. What are they talking about right here? They're talking about invalidating an election on sketchy information and putting in the person who they themselves wanted. That's a mind-blowing sentiment, by the way. This idea that they're putting out this kind of hashtag resistance and all this other stuff, they're acting as if what DHS put out was mind-blowing. What they're saying is more mind-blowing. They're talking about a coup. Now, Glenn Greenwald explains the problem. So what's wrong with the story? Just one small thing. It was false. The story began to fall apart yesterday when the Associated Press reported that Wisconsin, one of the states included in the original report, for obvious reasons, caused the most excitement, did not, in fact, have its election system targeted by Russian hackers. The spokesman for Homeland Security tried to walk back that reversal, insisting that there was still evidence that some computer networks had been targeted, but could not say that they had anything to do with the elections or voting. And as Associated Press noted, Wisconsin's chief election administrator, Michael Haas, had repeatedly said that Homeland Security assured the state it had not been targeted. The story collapsed last night when Secretary of State of one of the states named, California, issued a scathing statement repudiating what was claimed in the report. Look, they're making this point that, and I'm going to put the article at the bottom, these guys were saying, oh my God, they had evidence that Putin was targeting these elections. And yet all these hillbots running out with their hairs on fire thinking they found something. Can we overturn the election? Dream the dream. Can we overturn the election? And then one state after another fell apart. Oh, I'm sorry. We were wrong. We lied. We lied. Either we were incompetent or we lied. Pick your pony. But what we were saying wasn't true. She just lost. She just lost. Now the catch becomes, the media is not really going to cover this thing repudiating themselves. They've been talking about this for 8 months. If you've been screaming at the top of your lungs for 8 months that Putin has something to do with hacking the election, are you going to turn around writing stories saying, okay, we were wrong. We didn't know what we were talking about. We just took the DNC's word for it. We don't like Donald Trump. We're going to put story after story after story attacking Donald Trump, and this was the fastest boat going. So this is the way we went. They're not going to say that. They're not going to say that. Fuck integrity. Integrity has nothing to do with it. We just like Donald Trump, so we're going to put out stories attacking Donald Trump. We're not going to put out stories talking about the Clinton Foundation. We're not going to put out stories talking about what WikiLeaks was exposing. We're not going to put out stories going into this thing of Comey lying. The real stories, the real media, the real things that people want to hear about dealing with corruption in our government. Those stories would not be put out. We're going to tell our own narrative of events. Whether those narratives turn out to be lies, whether those narratives get contested by other outlets, we're going to tell and stick with our own narrative of events. So in our minds, Russia hacked us. We don't really need skepticism. We don't need context. We don't even need evidence. In our mind, Russia hacked us. And that's what we're going to go with. That's the fastest boat running. I would answer this question for Glenn Greenwald. No, skepticism is not allowed. The VIPs, the veteran intelligence professional story came out. That was mind-blowing. That by itself should have been this kind of revelation that media dealt with if they were going to deal with things honestly. Multiple investigations show that it was a leak, not a hack. Never covered the story. Now, certain outlets like Bloomberg, Washington Times, certain outlets did start to cover the story, The Nation being another one. But at that point, it switched to, we have Nazis. There are Nazis all over the place. We're invaded by Nazis. We got to do something about Nazis. We need to pass laws about Nazis. What are we going to do about the Nazis? Wait a minute, you told me for 8 months that a foreign government has hacked the United States and in some way changed the outcome of the election. Now, when evidence comes out that says, A, it wasn't Russian hacking, B, evidence was moved and contorted to make it look as if it was Russian hacking, and C, that it was impossible for Russia to hack this based on this kind of physical principle, well, the physics of it all, you skip the Nazis. And then another story falls apart. The stories around the world were falling apart that Russia had anything to do with it. The media, the United States media, didn't want to have that conversation. Anything that contested their narrative of events about Russia and hacking, they didn't want to have the conversation. And so no, they're not going to have the conversation now. They were massively wrong. They lied to the public for 8 months. They lied. They lied. Call it what it is. It's a lie. They came up with the story based upon what the DNC said, but it had no there to it. What they were going off was an intelligence assessment. Essentially, somebody said, we think this is what took place. And the media act as if this was some kind of godlike proclamation that Russia has something to do with it. It's amazing. Do any of those people in the media know what an intelligence assessment is? Does any of those people in the media know that was contesting evidence about it? I'm getting to this point that are they lying or do they believe it? I don't know which one because I haven't been behind the scenes to know. Doesn't matter which one it is. Whether they're lying or they're misrepresenting the information on purpose. I mean, they're misrepresenting the information out of just blind ignorance. No idea. Intellectually, I want to know. Emotionally, I don't care. It just bugs the shit out of me that this is the narrative that they have been pushing, and doing so against another nation. Oh, okay. Looked like it took me off. Well, I was ending anyway. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share.